listeners, and welcome to our second podcast for Wind Therapy. This podcast is dedicated to women motorcycle riders, why we ride, what we ride, and our backstories. Information and education from a wide range of riders with varied experiences and levels of riding ability, both on the road and off the road. This show's for all women riders around the world to inspire, motivate, encourage, and empower. I'm really excited to introduce to you our second podcast today. The person we're going to talk to is a wonderful lady who started riding because she won a 125cc Piaggio Fly scooter in a raffle. And I hope I've said that name right. It was unregistered and warehoused, but only had 7 kilometres on the clock. Her husband thought riding was too dangerous and that she should register and sell the scooter. Luckily, he changed his mind, thanks hubby, and 10 years later, they've moved on from that little 125cc scooter, and now they both ride significantly larger machines. She personally dislikes being a pillion, and she needs to be in control all the time. So I really get that. When I read that, I thought, yeah, she's just like me. So she loves that she rides her own motorcycles. To that end, she's all about encouraging women to ride. She loves the freedom of getting on her bike, being surrounded by women that share the same passion. Whether it's a smaller, more intimate rides with friends or larger group rides, she loves that she can share and encourage other women. She rides her own. Hi, Belinda. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Neen. Yourself?
Good, thank you.
Fabulous.
So excited to be talking to you. We've done a little bit of riding together, but we haven't had a lot of time to sit down and chat. So I'm really interested to hearing more about you today.
Excellent.
So welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you do for a living, and does this career help or hinder your riding?
It's an interesting question, Neen. I am actually a work health safety manager for the Department of Education. My key focus is managing risk. Does it hinder or help? I think that a little bit of both. I know that from a personal standpoint, I allow a little bit of fear to creep into my riding. I feel that keeps me safe. But it also means that on a daily basis, I know how to manage and assess risk. So I think that in my riding, I can apply that on the fly, and that when I'm having fun, I'm making sure that I'm also safe. But I think that the other thing is it means that I can, if I'm leading a group of women on a fantastic ride, I can understand, the right roads to take them on, given the skill level of the people that are with me, or what will be fun for those that are a little bit more experienced, but what to steer away from, because I know that it might be able to get us into trouble. So it probably does help more than it hinders.
It's interesting you say that. I come from the same background, and a lot of people say, the risk. You know what's going to happen if it goes bad. So why do you do it? It's, everyone has their own story. Everyone has their own ideas. And it's great that you are able to bring that to a ride, and you are able to support all levels, because when it comes down to it with risk, it's about the individual person and making sure that you know them, and making sure that they're safe, and that they've got all the protection that they need. So that's great. That's wonderful. How long have you been riding for?
I would say I'm creeping up to that 10-year mark. When I say that, I think that I surprise myself a little bit, because it doesn't feel like it's been that long. But I was responding to one of those viral posts on social media the other day saying, tell me how many bikes you've had in an extended period, in the period of time you've been riding. And counting them up, there was a very large number, unfortunately. And it turns out that I must be creeping very close to 10 years. So I was fortunate enough to get my license, I think, a little bit later in life. I think that's a good thing when you've got all that experience and knowledge under your belt. But I can certainly say that getting my license a little bit later has not slowed me down any. It has not decreased my level of enjoyment and fun for the sport. But I think that 10 years experience, I'm finally getting to that point where I feel confident and comfortable enough to relay my experience and help others with that.
No, that's wonderful. That's great. So 10 years.
Yeah.
That's probably gone very, very fast.
Yeah.
Very, very, very fast. And what's the first memory that you have of motorbikes?
I would say probably sitting on the Piaggio Fly that I won, thinking to myself, this just seems very daunting. At trying to get it from my house to a mechanic to get it registered. So the very first time I'm on the road with my elves, it was terrifying. So the thought that I am completely exposed, that I'm absolutely vulnerable, and that any mistake that I or the people around me could make could really be my undoing, I think was quite nerve-wracking. And getting the bike back home and taking my helmet off and feeling quite relieved that I made it. I'd say that's the very first clear memory that I have. I remember the route that I took. I remember where I was going. I remember the conversations that I had in that entire trip. And I remember that my husband was behind me in the car the whole time, making sure that people behind me didn't interfere with my riding. And that was a long time ago. But the feeling and the fear is still fresh in my head.
Yeah, wow. And do you feel any different now?
I feel much more confident now. I think that those short trips are quite an easy thing to do. Every now and then I will ride to work, and that's quite simple, and it's quite an easy, like commuting on my bike I find to be quite easy. I know that sometimes on a longer ride I might push myself maybe just that little bit hard, and that fear creeps in. But I welcome it, I think, because it helps me make decisions that I need to make to keep me safe. So that it doesn't creep in as often, but every now and then there is certainly a situation where that fear kicks in, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like I've had my license for about 20 years, and I've been riding since I was 5. Like started on dirt bikes, moved to road bikes, but I had a 10-year gap when I had my kids from riding, and I still get that feeling at the beginning of every ride. That knot in your stomach, but a little bit different from excitement, and a little bit of anxiety. And I say to people, if you don't have that feeling, I think it's actually a bit scary, because you've got to be alert. You've got to have that sense of everyone's coming at me to ride safely. And, once you settle into the ride, it's very different. But that initial feeling when you get on your bike of this is going to be a good ride, or I don't know if I should be riding today, but that's very normal. And I've got a friend who's learning at the moment, and she's explaining that feeling to me, and I'm giving her that encouragement and saying that that's very normal to feel like that, but don't give up, because that feeling will change to that adrenaline, to that wonderful wind therapy feeling where you just get out there and you enjoy the ride and everything goes smoothly. And there's nothing like that feeling in the world.
Not at all.
It's the best feeling in the world. Yeah, but you've just got to get that past that bit. And that's why I'm so excited about all this support for women riders. That there's that encouragement there, and there's that feeling of motivating and supporting, and not feeling anxious about going out for a ride, because the people that you're riding with are going to support you. They're going to ride to your level and give you that education as well. So
absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Can you tell me, we know a little bit about, you won the 125 scooter. Is there anything else that happened in your life that influenced, or is there someone who inspired you to keep going, to get your license, to get those bigger bikes?
I don't think that there was any one person. I think that the drive to increase the size of the bike that I was on was probably more driven from that need to feel safe. So, at the level of exposure that I had on a smaller bike on a motorway, for example, my inability to keep up with traffic and make sure that I could maneuver the way that I wanted to maneuver to stay safe was probably a key driver. I do remember thinking to myself, I need to be able to keep up with traffic, and this just doesn't cut it for me. And so that probably pushed me to upgrading a bit. Watching my husband upgrade and being left behind was also a little bit of an indicator. So, watching the enjoyment that he was getting out of the bigger bikes, and the fact that he could go further and go faster, and, he was really enjoying it, probably piqued my interest a bit more. But the joy of riding with my husband was really a good key too. So, we both had scooters, and then he upgraded and I couldn't upgrade yet because I was probably 12 months behind him on my license journey. And then when the ability came for me to upgrade, it then kicked in the need to improve my skills and my ability to ride well enough to keep up with him, because he was naturally a quite proficient rider. Mm-hmm. So I found that the bikes that I was on was not quite cutting it for me. So I went from having my scooter, I went to a cruiser. So I went to a Honda Shadow 750, and that was probably too big for me. So I cut back to just a VT 750, which is a fabulous bike. And I really enjoyed it, but I found that the riding style was not quite good enough for me. It hurt my back a little bit. I wasn't able to corner the way that I wanted to corner. So that kind of drove me to change style in my bike, and that moved me onto those naked sports bikes. Mm-hmm. And then it was just making sure that I could keep up with him and making sure that, he wasn't constantly waiting for me, that he was comfortable and confident enough that I was where I needed to be on the road, and that, he could turn a corner and not have to wait for me to turn the corner as well. And so making sure that he was confident really turned into a key for me to making sure that I was confident. And then that just drove me to start going to courses and developing those skills so that I could maintain and increase that confidence. And I did. And I think that one of the best things that I did was a couple of road skill courses so that I could increase that confidence. And I believe right now, if you talk to him, and he may not admit it if you do, but I am actually a slightly better rider than him because I have gone out of my way to get that way. I have focused on what I needed to do to become more confident, and I have pushed through to get to that point. And I think, unfortunately, I might have left him behind me.
Look, that's not too bad, but it sounds like a really supportive partner, and that's really lovely. Maybe we need to clone him.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good, and it's so good that you do have a partner to share those rides with you, and that's encouraging but also supporting and challenging you as well. Yeah.
Absolutely,
that's great. Yeah. Like my husband rides as well. We have very, very different ideas of what a good ride is. He likes the dirt. I like the tar.
Yeah.
And I think we've ridden twice together. But we've definitely got plans to do a lot more riding together. So that's lovely. It's really nice that you've got that common interest, and that you've built that education and experience together. Yeah. So you mentioned some courses that you've done. Tell me a little bit about those and maybe where we can access that. I'm in the country in the middle of nowhere. So any sort of riding education is quite a distance for me. But whereabouts are you, and what's available to you?
Yeah, so I'm actually based in Sydney CBD, so it is a little bit easier for me to access. The courses that I did were with a company that unfortunately is no longer operating those courses, but I did take advantage of the female-only ride days that they had, and I did a couple of street skill courses, basically. So it was teaching me they taught you the basics, how to ride slow, which anyone can ride fast, but riding slow is really a trick, and I still struggle with that today. So how to ride slow and maintain control of your bike, how to corner effectively, so how to set yourself up for the corner, how to look into the corner, how to exit the corner, when to brake, when your turn point is. All of that is really good, important information, particularly if you're going to be doing a lot of road riding on a lot of those twisty roads. So how do you get yourself into the best position to take the corner? And it really, really good skills, how to emergency brake. Emergency braking is so important. So, they're no longer available, but places like Stay Upright do all sorts of road courses. And I strongly encourage people all the time to sign up and do those courses, because it's those basic skills that you don't learn enough to put into practice until you have to. So if you can get those basic skills under your belt, if you're going to understand how to react in the event of an emergency or if something slightly goes wrong, so that you don't panic, because as we know, most people come a cropper when they panic. So if you can learn those skills as second nature and second hand and just a reflex reaction, then you set yourself up in a much better situation if something does go wrong. Yeah. So I strongly encourage it if you can get your hands on any of those Stay Upright courses. They're fabulous. we are a little bit spoiled in one of the groups that I'm in that we do have a rider that is quite willing to take us out on the road and teach us skills on the road. So if you can get somebody that is an extremely proficient rider or a professional rider that is willing to do that as well, that's fabulous. But the other thing that I encourage you to do is just talk to people. So, you know, those people that have that experience on the road, those people that do a lot of riding, those people that have, you know, developed a lot of wisdom when it comes to decision making and reflexes, and just understand what they do and just practice. The best way to understand and get those skills under your belt is to just ride, and not ride fast and not ride hard. Just ride until you get something right, and then move on and start to practice the next skill. But if you can get yourself signed up for any of those courses, I strongly recommend it. They're fabulous courses, and the skills that you learn, you'll actually take the entire way through your riding life.
Yeah, and thanks so much for that advice, Belinda. I think it's so relevant, and we are all so different. So, and we've got the internet, Google away, and I'll try and get some links. I've got a Facebook page, a Wind Therapy Podcast Facebook page, so I'll get some information on there as well for people that they can refer to as well.
Fabulous.
Thanks, Belinda. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. So you mentioned a little bit about some of the bikes that you've owned. What have you owned, and what are you riding now?
Yeah. So there is that, you know, famous Piaggio Fly scooter, the 125, which did, you know, really well for a long period of time. It got me around. Once I was off my L's, because I'm a mature rider, once I was off my L's, I moved straight into a manual motorcycle from that automatic scooter, and I got that. My husband bought me the Honda Shadow, the 750 Shadow, which was quite heavy and a bit cumbersome for me. So then I moved on to the VT 750. Once I decided that the position was probably not quite right for me, we went shopping, and the next bike that I owned was a Kawasaki ER6, which was a phenomenal little bike. It was a fabulous little bike, a 650. It was, you know, learner approved. Not that I was a learner, but it was learner approved. It was fun. It was light. It was nimble. It was quick. It was an amazing motorcycle that I really got a lot of joy out of. But unfortunately, a friend of mine then allowed me to sit on his Triumph Street Triple. I may have become slightly smitten by that.
Why?
They're just such a beautiful motorcycle, and the ride position was much similar to the Kawasaki, but the sound of it, the feel of it, it's just, Triumph know how to make a motorcycle, I've got to say. And so I did say to my husband, I think you should test ride, knowing full too well that one would end up in my garage quite quickly after that point. So I moved on to the Triumph Street Triple, which was an awesome motorcycle until, you know, unfortunately I had to have a couple of clutches replaced on that, and the time frame to turn that around kind of got a little bit lengthy. So I've decided to move back to the Japanese bikes. A friend of mine told me that if you want to get a quick turnaround on a bike fix, you need to go the Japanese bikes because the parts are everywhere. So I went back to the Japanese bikes, and my next bike was a Suzuki GSX S1000. So I did upgrade to that point, and he has been my steed ever since. So I've had him probably now for about 4, coming on to 5 years.
Okay.
And he is amazing. He is light, he's nimble, he's quick, he's adaptable, so he will do all sorts of travel for me, and he's also very comfortable. So he is my fallback, and I will ride him whenever I can, but I did go out of my way not so long ago to purchase a second motorcycle. So I have a Kawasaki Z900 RS, which is the retro style Z900, and I have the cafe version. He's very cute too. He's a nice grey colour. So I have the 2 bikes, and the cafe comes out from time to time. I was on him last weekend, but he's not terribly comfortable over long distances. So I may have come home from Lithgow last week standing on my pegs because my bottom was sore. But they're my 2 bikes. My Suzuki is called Bruce, because if you look down at him while you're sitting on him, there is a little piece of fairing that sits across the top of the tank that actually does resemble Batman's mask. So he is Bruce. And my Kawasaki's name is Jude, because he's named after my mother, who left me the money when she passed away to buy him. So I have named him after her. Her name is Judith.
Oh, that's lovely.
So they are Jude and Bruce.
I have a Bruce as well. Yeah, I think you've probably met Bruce, but because he looks like Batman as well. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? There you go. Yeah, nice. Thank you for sharing that. And was your mum proud of your riding?
My mum was nervous about me riding. To be honest, my father was probably the parent that was most concerned about me riding. My mother was of the understanding that I was a grown-up and can make my own decisions. My dad was unfortunately one of those people that spent a lot of time when he was young in a hospital ward with a lot of motorcycle riders who had come a cropper, and we're talking the 1930s. So, you know, the health system back then was not great. So he had a quite significant fear of it. So he was not great about it, but my mum was fine, and I think she understood the need for me to do something for me, and that's exactly what riding is for me.
Exactly, yeah. Nice. Yeah. Do you maintain your bikes yourself?
No.
No?
I've got to be honest in that. My husband is awesome when it comes to things like cleaning chains, and I will wash them from time to time. That they are often dirty, which upsets my husband because he's a photographer, so it means that his subject matter is dirty. But he will do a lot of the simple maintenance for me. But I have an amazing mechanic that has always looked after my bikes, I think, from the time that I started riding. And he does a great job for us. So he does all of the heavy lifting, but my husband does all of the spot maintenance, and I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you want to shout out to your mechanic?
I do. So Brandon Geary over at SPM Motorcycles at Tarrant Point is my mechanic. Amazing guy, fabulous customer service. Just, you know, he's one of my favourite people.
Oh, it's so good to have a reliable mechanic that you can trust and that doesn't, pull the wool over your eyes. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. If you could have any bike, so money's not an option, size is not an option, what would you have and why would you have that bike?
Yeah, I've always eyed off because I think they're really sexy. I've always eyed off a Brutale.
I haven't heard of that.
So an MV Augusta Brutale. And I say that knowing that I have an acquaintance that rides one. And I do look at it whenever I see her and I think to myself, it's very sexy. And I think that's the reason that I want it. It's more the fact that it's quite a sexy looking motorcycle. Have I ever sat on one? No, I have not. But from a distance, I really, really love the look of them. They're just beautiful. Okay. But if money was no, I can't go wrong with the bikes that I have. They are absolutely my favourite bikes, and I am fortunate enough to be in a position to be able to upgrade if I would like to, and I just love what I have.
Well, that's good. You might have to send me a photo of one of those bikes that you'd like to have, and I'll chuck it on the podcast so other people can see what it looks like. But I'm going to be Googling that as well. Yeah, very interesting. Okay. And with all the riding that you do, I know you said you commute to and from work, but when you, do your weekend rides or your rides away, what's the main kind of riding that you actually do?
It's all road riding. I am more of a recreational rider, so I do commute to work if I need to, but I would much prefer to grab a small, even if it's just a small intimate group of people around me, put on my helmet, find a destination to stop and have some lunch and just ride there. And the twistier the roads, the better. I am a lover of the corner, and I'm sure that my friends will agree with me when I say that. I do love the corners on a road. I do love the sweeping, the fact that you have to put all of your concentration into where you're going and how you are doing it, and that is my favourite kind of riding. It's just that helmet on, eyes on the road, concentration in the corner, a little bit of music in my helmet, off I go.
Yeah. And being in Sydney, I suppose the seasons, it's a little bit cooler in winter, but the seasons are pretty good all year round to ride.
Yeah, pretty good, yeah. We're very fortunate. I think we've got some destinations from Sydney that you probably don't want to do in winter, like up into the Blue Mountains. Nobody's crazy enough to do that. But, there really is no real time of the year that you that you can't ride around Sydney and its suburbs. And we do have some beautiful roads around Sydney. You don't even have to go very far out of Sydney. I'm quite keen to ride around southwest Sydney, so around the Campbelltown, Camden area. There are a lot of beautiful back roads down there to ride, or north up to the Putty Road. You know, all of these roads are easily accessible for anyone in Sydney, and it doesn't matter what time of year, they're just beautiful rides.
Yeah, thank you. What couldn't you live without on your bike, and why?
My headset.
I agree.
Yeah, so I am, my husband hates it, but I am a firm believer that to be in the right headspace, I love to listen to music, and it's got to be the right kind of music. But if I am on a nice cruisy ride, there's nothing better than listening to some music in your headset and looking at the view and enjoying the ride, and knowing that when you get to the end, you've got some great company to have something to eat with, and you can turn around and do it all again. And then if I am riding with my husband, it keeps that conversation going. So sometimes we have some quite important conversations when we're on the bike and we're not face to face, but my headset is key to all of that.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Where's the furthest that you've ridden?
Oh, the furthest that I've ridden, I would say I do it often. You would know. I quite like a ride up from Sydney to Walker or Wauchope or Port Macquarie, where I get to ride some of my favourite rides. I'm not a fan of sitting on the bike for days and days at a time. I've got to be frank about that. But I will sit on my bike for an entire day and ride if I know that the roads are going to be fun and the destination is absolutely worth it. So I would say the first I've ridden is probably up around to Coffs Harbour and back, and then up around the roads around Waterfall Way.
Isn't that a beautiful area?
It's absolutely, if you haven't done it, I encourage the people listening to this to do that. That is one of the most fantastic roads in New South Wales.
Yep.
But that's probably the furthest. But I will do weekend rides often.
I think we need to organise a ride up Waterfall Way.
Agreed.
I drove it just after Christmas and got goosebumps even in the car. It was just such beautiful, beautiful area. Yeah, I think we need to organise that one. Yeah. What has riding taught you about yourself?
It's taught me that I'm pretty tough. You know, there are times, particularly when I was learning how to ride and I was quite inexperienced, and, you know, that ride that we were talking about, that long ride up to Walker, there's some pretty significant roads up there that can be unpleasant if you're not used to them. And I know that the first time that I did the ride up Thunderbolt's Way, we hit it at night time in the rain. And I had not been riding very long, and I was on my ER6 and I was quite nervous, and it's very, very dark. And even though I cried the whole way, not once did I consider quitting. So I know that being on a motorcycle in the middle of nowhere, knowing that you don't have an option but to keep going, has really taught me some good resilience. And the fact that I have thrown myself into situations that have created that for me just teaches me that I'm pretty tough and that I'm pretty resilient, and that nothing is permanent. And so I can get through any of those issues if I just hang tight and I just keep twisting that throttle, and I just understand that at the end of it is going to be a hot shower or a warm meal or a safe or a cuddle from my husband or something. I can get through that. And that's pretty impressive to learn, I think.
Absolutely. And, you know, when we do push ourselves beyond the limits that we think we're capable of, that is the most amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And we know that we're tough. We know that we can get through these things, but pushing through it and saying, yes, I can, is probably the hardest decision to make. And like you said, not giving up. That's a really good story. Thank you. But at night in the rain, oh my goodness, I thought I was tough riding at night in the rain in Penrith.
It wasn't until we were coming back down a few months later in the daytime, and I believe I said to my husband, I can't believe we didn't die. So, the conditions of that road are quite hectic at the best of times, but to see it in the daytime and understand that we were doing it at night in the rain and not being able to see where we were going and everybody made it, was just a little bit more of an enlightening, view to me. Just to go, I did that.
Yep. Tick that box. I did that. I know that I can cope with it if it happens again as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. You've got more guts than I do. In all the rides in the world that you could do, what would your dream ride be?
What would my dream ride be? I've thought about this often because I think I've asked people the same thing a lot. I would actually love to ride New Zealand. So, there are a lot of beautiful roads in New Zealand, and I think that the sights, I've been there as a kid, and I remember the sights that were just beautiful. I would love to do the whole thing, even though I've just said I don't think I could do days and days on a motorcycle. I would love to spend some time riding around New Zealand at my leisure, taking a good amount of time to do it on the right kind of bike. Yeah. But I think that would just be the ultimate.
That sounds awesome. That's one of my bucket list places too. Yeah. It's just a beautiful place to go, and the scenery amazing to soak up.
Yeah.
And do you think you'll do that in the near future?
I think so. I think we've spoken about what travel looks like after COVID, and I think that my husband and I have agreed that the next few trips that we do will probably be a little bit more local, so Tasmania or New Zealand, and I think that that's definitely a goal. And I think that if we go, there is no way that we would not go and figure out how to have bikes there at the same time. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the riding gear that you wear and why.
Yeah, so I am actually a very firm believer in all the gear all the time. I think that's probably one of the reasons that I don't commute as much, because the job that I'm in means that when I'm at the other end, I need to be corporately attired. So, the fact that I then have to judge how I'm going to get all my gear to work, off, get changed, it's too much. But I absolutely need to have all the gear on all the time. I'm a firm believer in Kevlar jeans. And if I can't have Kevlar jeans on, I do have Kevlar leggings that go under my jeans. So I will always be wearing, it doesn't matter the brand, as long as the jeans contain Kevlar to keep me safe and to make sure that I don't crash, including the knee pads. It's very important. And the right jacket. I've got several jackets. I've probably got too many jackets, but a leather jacket, if you can wear it, or definitely something with armour in it, is the way to go. I recently gave away a jacket that had been sitting in my cupboard for a while, that I didn't need anymore. And the woman that I gave it to was getting it for her daughter because she desperately wanted her daughter, who was being a pillion on her boyfriend's new bike, to wear the gear. And the conversation that I had with this mother was amazing. She was blown away by the fact that there was actually gear out there for women. She had no idea. So, I will never get on my bike without the correct jeans on, without a jacket on. My helmet goes on naturally anyway. A really nice pair of comfortable gloves. Your gloves have got to be comfortable. If you're going to be squeezing levers, for hours on end, your gloves have to be comfortable, and a good pair of decent boots. So, I have, again, several, probably too many pairs of boots. I have the most beautiful pair of boots that I got hand painted, and I wear them from time to time, but I don't wear them all the time because I just, you want to keep them for special. But I do have several pairs of boots, but I've always got my gear on. And the funny thing is, if you find me on Facebook, you will find a photo of me not wearing my gear. And I was nervous, and all I was doing was riding 20 metres up a road, and I was scared the whole time. So, I'm desperately encourage people, if you are going to get on a motorcycle, please make sure that you've got the gear on, because the last thing that you want if something goes wrong, and it can go wrong in a second, is you don't want to be losing skin. You want to be as safe as you can be, and you want to make sure that you can get up at the end of it and walk away. I have a very good friend of mine was unfortunately in a quite a significant accident, and whilst bones were broken, she wasn't missing a piece of her skin, and she's very grateful about that because she had all of the gear on, and I'm grateful about that because she lived to tell the tale. And it's just I do get a little bit dictatorial about when it comes to wearing gear, but I strongly encourage everyone to do it.
Yeah, I love what you said, all the gear, all the time. My husband's a fireman, and there's no way he would let me on a bike without all the gear.
Absolutely, yeah.
Saying that, though, my mum, she used to ride bikes. She was amazing, such a great role model for me. She said to me the same thing, always have your gear on. And when we did the ladies ride out at Warhope last year, I was checking the tyre pressure on my bike before we did the ride out at the petrol station, and I was just riding around to where we were meeting. I didn't put my gloves on, did I? And what did I do? I dropped my bike.
Yes.
And the only part of me that was injured was my hands. I grazed my hands, and that might have been not even 50 metres. I thought, I'll just chuck my gloves down my shirt. She'll be right. I'm just going to park.
Yeah.
And, why didn't you have your gloves on, Janine? Is what my mum said.
Absolutely.
So, even doing that now, I will put my gloves on. So
and
it's just not worth it.
I remember a story that my instructor, when I was getting my L's, my instructor was telling us about a story and how important it is to wear particularly your gloves, because the last thing that you want is somebody else to have to wipe your bottom for you when you come off your motorcycle.
Good analogy, yeah.
Yes.
No one's going there. Thank you for that. Yeah, and look, women riders are getting more and more access to great quality safety gear. Long way to go, but we've got the Kevlar leggings, we've got the pads that go in them, we've got some beautiful jackets we can buy, and I think in a lot of the areas where women go to talk about riding, there's a lot of people that give advice about what they've bought, why they've bought it, what's worked, what hasn't worked. So, there's lots and lots of more stuff on the market now for women for us to ride and be really comfortable in what we're riding in, but also feel like a woman, not like a Michelin man.
Absolutely. I think that's important, and I think that one of the biggest challenges that we have as women when we're looking for motorcycle gear is gear that is flattering as well as being safe. And I know that, there are businesses out there that are wholly and solely focused on keeping us safe, but keeping us looking good at the same time. So if you think about brands like Miss Moto, who have a fabulous range of safety gear, but is really good looking gear. And
reasonably priced.
Oh, it's amazing. I had a pair of their overalls, their dungarees, and just they're the most comfortable things that I think that I've ever ridden in, and they look cool. They really do look good. So I encourage people to shop around. They're a great place to go to get them. Amanda, who now runs that business, is phenomenal as well. All about making sure that women are always kept safe and look good doing it, and making sure that we can meet the expectations of female riders. She's very keen to understand what we need and what we want to see, and to helping us fill the gap in the market.
Absolutely. I've actually got her coming up in a podcast, so it'd be great to have a chat with her. Yeah. I suppose the last thing for us to talk about today is about the group that I don't know what you call it, facilitate, lead. She rides her own. Can you tell us a little bit about how that started, what's happening in that group, and what are the aspirations moving forward, how people can join, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, like many groups, we are a Facebook-based group. The group basically started when I'm not sure if you remember when the World Record Women's Ride or the Women's Ride, I'm not sure which direction it goes in. So when the World Relay came through Australia of all women riders, it was a phenomenal event. So it was a worldwide event, all female riders carrying a baton around the world to promote women in motorcycling and the need to have better gear available for women and the need to promote and support women in motorcycling. It was a phenomenal event. And I was fortunate enough to be involved in a leg of that, which ran from Newcastle to Batemans Bay. and to facilitate the conversation and the communication in that event to that particular group of women, we created a Facebook page. What I was fortunate enough to end up with at the end was a group of women who love to ride, who were encouraging and supporting and really did want to stay in contact. So we created She Rides Her Own out of that base. The group now is all across Australia. It's very national. And while we don't organise rides across Australia, I think the fun part about it is that it is women speaking to women about what's important in riding. So, tips and tricks. It's a safe place to ask questions without ego. We do organise rides from time to time. We hit the key events. So the female ride events, we always try and kick as much as we can to support women as much as we can. And it's just a great place to meet women who ride. Unfortunately, last year was a little bit busy for me, but I am getting back into that, regular organising rides. We've got rides coming up this weekend and the following weekend. And I'm trying very hard to encourage people in other states to organise rides through the group in other states so that we can get groups of women on the road, because there is no better thing to see than a group of female riders together, confident, sassy and sexy, and enjoying their time on the road together. I am a member of a few groups, and it's such a joy to be with people that have a similar passion to you, and it's great to be able to share tips, tricks and support with new riders, and to take the opportunity to remove ego, to have women supporting women, to encourage people to ride and to ride more. So if you're a new rider and you're looking for a group of women that you want to ride with, I encourage you to reach out to us on Facebook. Most rides are learner and P-plate friendly. Leading rides is something I'm quite passionate about. If it's a short ride or a long ride, to make sure that it's fun to get there and that we all get there in one piece and not lose people is a huge key for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're doing such a fantastic job. It's a wonderful group to be part of. It very motivating, very supportive. Every person that I have met that is part of the group has just been so lovely. And, you can see the stickers all over the place. You might be down the coast or up the coast and you'll say, there's She Rides Her Own sticker. I was not long ago at Robertson Pie Shop and a lady rider rode up and she had the She Rides Her Own sticker on there, and I was straight up to her, "Hi, how you going?" I'm in your group too. It's amazing how many stickers are around the place. So if anyone does see...
Yeah, it's great. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
It's amazing because I do ship them all over the country. It's amazing when people send me photos from interstate.
Yep.
That they've spotted one of the stickers either on a bike or a car. I don't like those on a car. It's all advertising to let the world know that I am a woman and I ride my own motorcycle and I'm really proud of it.
Yep, I love it.
Yeah.
Belinda, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks,
and I'm sure all the listeners have as well, and can't wait to catch up with you in person soon and join a ride.
Fabulous. Thank you for your time, Neen. It's been awesome talking to you too.
No worries. Ride safe.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. If you like what you heard, please tell your friends. If you or someone you know might like to be part of Wind Therapy episodes, email windtherapypodcast@yahoo.com. Special thanks to Megan Peacock for the awesome Wind Therapy illustration, and to Zoe Francis for her technical support, direction and production of this podcast.